Hello everybody, I hope you are doing well. Sorry I am not in today. Due to that, we're only going to do part of this lesson, so we're going to do part of it today, and we'll be doing the other part on Monday, and some things next week. Next week we'll shift around a little bit, but we'll talk about that more next week. So what you need to do today is you'll need to watch this ed puzzle. Fill in your notes as you watch so you get an idea of how to do these. I'm even going to pause at one point and have you guys try a problem on your own. And then there's a problem for you to do on Class Kick. And then there's a homework assignment for you to do, but you're only going to do 1 through 4. So that's all you have to get done for Monday's class. Alright, so this is our 6th identity idea. It is for when you are dealing with fractions. So if one side's a fraction, or if one part of a side is a fraction and you're trying to make this work, our goal is going to be to get common denominators. So that's what we want to work towards. So in number 1, what we want to look at is we're actually going to start on the side that has the plus sign on it. This is the side we actually want to start on. It's easier to take something and condense it into one fraction than it is to take a fraction and break it apart, though part of our rules are you could do that. It's not going to be super helpful for this problem. So we're going to start on that side. And what I want you to pay attention to is what the denominator is on the left side. The denominator right now is sign. So that means on the right side we want to put everything in terms of signs. So the first thing we want to do is switch out for cosecant. I know cosecant is 1 over sine from over on the right, so I'm going to switch that out. And then I'm going to change this to be a fraction as well. I'm going to make that sine x over 1. And then what needs to happen next is we need to get a common denominator. So to get a common denominator, I'm going to multiply that second fraction. It also needs to have a denominator of sine, so we're going to multiply the top and bottom there by sine. And we're going to get 1 over sine x plus sine times sine is sine squared over sine x. And now we can squish those together. That's going to be 1 plus sine squared x over sine x. Alright, so now what's nice about the problem is we got the denominators to match. So now we need to work on getting the numerators to match. So looking at the top, the cosine squared is what's popping out to me. This says sine squared right now, so we want to place something in for sine squared to get the cosine squared that this is talking about. So we need to look at that formula, and we're going to solve it for sine squared. So I know sine squared is really equal to 1 minus cosine squared. That's what we want to plug in the top for this one. So that's going to change to 1 plus 1 minus cosine squared over sine squared equals 2 minus cosine squared over sine x. And then on the top we can now combine the ones. We actually did want to create a problem that had 2 ones on top so we could get that 2. So now that is 2 minus cosine squared over sine x equal to 2 minus cosine squared over sine x. Check. Let's try another one. Oh. Alright guys, this one is not the right one, so just go ahead and delete this page. The next one is the right number 2, so just go ahead and delete that page. This is the number 2 we want to look at. So again, when you're deciding which side to look at here, it's the side that has the plus or minus sign that you want to be working on today. So we're going to be working on this side. And right now they're not fractions, but if I use our first rule that we learned, if I change secant out, I can change secant out for 1 over cosine. This is going to create fractions. So you actually sometimes have to create the fraction yourself. But once I create that to be a fraction, I'm also going to make the other one be a fraction, so I changed it to cosine theta over 1. So then what we need to work on, again, to add and subtract fractions, they have to have the same denominator. You can't just add them however you want to. You have to make sure they have the matching denominator first. So the one on the right is going to need to get multiplied by cosine theta. Whatever you do to the bottom, you got to do the top. So the new step is going to be 1 over cosine theta minus cosine squared theta over cosine theta equals tangent theta sine theta. So then we're just going to keep simplifying here. I can condense that into one fraction now that they have the same denominator. So once the denominators match, you're just going to squish it together. And then we want to swap out for 1 minus cosine squared. We want to swap that out. If we want to go the long way, I can swap in for 1. That's going to be sine squared plus cosine squared. Then we have the minus cosine squared still over cosine equals tangent theta sine theta. So then these cancel. And we've got sine squared theta over cosine. And then you can actually switch over to the right side and make a change on the right side. I know I can make a change for tangent. Tangent is sine over cosine. Then that's times sine theta. And if I put that over 1, look what happens. I get sine squared theta over cosine theta equal to sine squared theta over cosine theta. So again, the whole idea with what we're working on today is getting common denominators. So if there isn't a fraction, you can usually use one of your reciprocal identities to get a fraction. And then once you have those fractions, you can use them to get a common denominator, and then you can squish them together to try to get it condensed down to match the other side. Alright, I want you guys to take a minute and try number 3 on your own. And then I will work it out. I'm going to start in 3, 2, 1. So the first key to this one is, again, if one part's a fraction, the other part's not. We want to work on the side that has the plus sign. So let me talk about that first. We're going to work on that side first. Since the sine squared over cosine x is a fraction, we also would want to change this to be a fraction. And your first step should have been getting the same denominator. The left one has cosine x as the denominator, so this one also needs to have cosine x as the denominator. So we need to multiply the top and bottom by cosine x. So we're going to get sine squared x over cosine x plus cosine squared x over cosine x. And then the whole point there is I can squish those together. That's sine squared plus cosine squared over cosine. And then you do need to take a minute and look over at what could happen with sine squared plus cosine squared. Sine squared plus cosine squared is really just 1. So hopefully you're starting to see this, that you were able to work some of this out on your own, because it should be pretty straightforward 1. And then I know 1 over cosine is really just, not that one, is really just secant. So that can swap out to be secant equal to secant. Check. Alright, so now you should be working on the problems on ClassKit. There's just one problem actually. So try the problem on ClassKit. If you get stuck, write me a note and I will get back to you about it at some point this weekend so you guys can take a look at it. And then it's 1 through 4 of the homework that you guys are going to be doing. Excuse me. Alright guys, I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and I will see you all again on Monday.